Everyone, thanks so much for joining tonight's session. Our webinar tonight is how to pick a science major. I do see a couple of you guys getting settled into the webinar this evening, so I just want to give a couple of minutes to get everyone settled in, everyone logged in. But as you're coming into tonight's webinar, I do just want to introduce myself. My name is Christine, and I am an undergraduate admission counselor here at the university. I will not be giving the presentation tonight. Our Professor Jessica Souter will be giving the presentation on how to pick a science major. I will be in the background answering any admissions questions you may have. So please feel free to use the Q&A chat feature or even the chat feature itself. But again, I just want to give us a couple more minutes so that way all of our prospective students and family members can get settled in for the webinar this evening. But thank you so much for joining. All right, so I see a good chunk of you already in the room, which is great. So again, my name is Christine. I'm an undergraduate admission counselor here at the university. Please feel free to put some of your questions into the chat. If they're admissions related, I will be able to answer them since I am an admission counselor. But if they're going to be more related to the webinar this evening on how to pick a science major, please feel free to put them in the chat. And then again, our Professor Jessica Souter will be able to answer them at the end. So I'm going to pass it over. Jessica, if you want to take over, you're more than welcome to.
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to talk to you today on some thoughts about how to pick a sciences major. I am the Interim Associate Dean for Misher College of Arts and Sciences, although I would say it really is more appropriately a College of Sciences. This Misher College houses all of our science programs, undergraduate and graduate at USciences. I'm also a program director for the pre-professional and undeclared program, so I know a lot about the process of students working through how am I going to pick my major. And finally, I'm an associate professor of medical sociology, and I'll tell you more about that later. So, hopefully you are here, interested in this webinar and interested in USciences because you love science. Our students across the board really love science, but not everybody's quite sure on all of the details. So if that describes you, you are in the right place. We want to think about some big questions here tonight. So if you think about general advice on how to pick majors, the first thing to think about is what you enjoy doing. What do you want to dedicate your next 4 years, 6 years, rest of your life to? That's really important. Second, you might also have a career goal in mind, something that you're working toward after you get your degree. And third, a lot of people say that money is a factor. Education is one step on the process to getting a job and earning an income that's going to support you. So money is important there. I'll come back to these issues at the end, but I want to emphasize you don't have to decide right away. In a lot of schools, people cannot even declare their major until the second year. At USciences, a lot of people tend to choose their major going in, but you can also come in as undeclared. Work with me, get exposure to all of the different sciences, and really just explore and learn and figure out what you want to do, what's going to fit you best. And second thing to remind you of, you don't have to choose just one. There are lots of different options for you to become multidisciplinary and learn how to approach issues from multiple perspectives. And that's a really, really important important skill for all sorts of jobs in the workforce and especially in the sciences. First question, what classes do you enjoy? That's really important. And when we think about majors, a lot of times we can put them in a bit of a hierarchy. So a lot of times we hear about hard sciences, soft sciences, there's a range of sciences. These graphics, I use them because they both kind of make fun of sociology in a way, and I'm a sociologist. But they illustrate the fact that when we think of science and we think of, pure science, answering the big questions based on really clearly defined things that we can measure and that we can predict with equations. The hardest sciences are the most based in math. So, you think if you really like math, if you're really good at math, mathematics, physics, chemistry, that might be a good major for you. Um, these majors are also kind of less generalizable. You're working with very specific elements in labs, doing very specific procedures under controlled conditions. So there's a lot of theory involved too. What I like about some of these other sciences as we move down the list, getting more generalizable and less pure, also more complex, is moving into chemistry and biology and psychology, where we have even more variables, variables that are harder to control. It depends on kind of which end of this spectrum excites you the most. And that's one way to think about what types of sciences you might gravitate toward. I also want to emphasize that all of these fields have really important applications. So here at USciences, we have a strong connection to health sciences and healthcare. And so a lot of our work that's done by physicists, by chemists, by psychologists, they're all working at applying theories to be applicable to different healthcare settings. So we can find any field that you're interested. There are ways to have very interesting applications to real life, and we can help you explore them. But one of the biggest questions to think about first is, how much of a math person are you? And if you don't like math, how much of a statistics person are you? Those tend to be kind of separated a lot when we talk about sciences. But when you get into biology, psychology, sociology, there's a lot of statistics involved. So one question could be, do you like math? The second question can be, which type of math do you like? And those are, really key foundations to our different sciences. I do want you to keep an open mind, because you may have your perfect major out there for you and you don't even know it exists yet. So I tell my orientation class that when I was applying to colleges, I wanted to be a biopsychologist, because I had seen my grandparents live through illnesses and they all dealt with them differently. And I really wanted to understand why people respond to health and illness in different ways. And me being 17, 18 years old, I thought, that's a biopsychologist. That is not a biopsychologist. And it wasn't until I was in college as a psychology major in the second half of my second year that I discovered sociology was even a thing. And that is my true calling and my passion now. So you may not even know the name for the thing you want to do yet. And we've got some really interesting majors that you can explore, like medical humanities, neuroscience. Maybe you're interested in pharmacy, but don't want to be in clinical care. Well, there's pharmaceutical chemistry, there's pharmacology and toxicology. If you are one of those people interested and good at stats, you could look into data science. So I do want you to keep an open mind because there are so many fields out there that you don't even know about yet. I also want you to think about your career goal, what you want to do. And this is a graphic of people who started out undeclared at USciences. And you could see there's a wide variety of pathways to majors: biological and biomedical sciences, psychology, medical humanities, physics and biophysics, pharmaceutical sciences, and chemistry and biochemistry. All of these students found their way, they started out undeclared, found their way into majors, and found their way into a variety of different jobs, working in healthcare, working in research, working in administration. So you want to keep your career goal in mind, but also know that there are a lot of different pathways to get to career goals. And, some people may change their mind throughout. So there are lots of options. There's more than one way to reach a career goal. I'll put it that way. I also want to encourage you to think more broadly. So, for example, if your career goal is medical school, that does not necessarily mean you want to be a biology major. That is a very common pre-med major, one that we see a lot. We have a very large biology program. But there are several other majors that are just as good, maybe if not better, that are going to help distinguish you and set you apart from the others. Majors like psychology, chemistry, neuroscience, and physics. And one good thing about USciences is that you can take any of these majors and you would still have pre-health advisors, Dr. Farber and Ms. Chen, to make sure that you're hitting all of the requirements for that end goal career while you are exploring different ways of thinking, different research methodologies, all of the exciting stuff you can explore while you're keeping your eyes on that medical school prize. I also want you to think about if graduate school is in your future. So professional school is in the future for a lot of students. Graduate school is in the future for a lot of students. Entry-level jobs in the sciences are available, absolutely. Working as research assistants in labs, um, lots of opportunities. But most opportunities come after some additional graduate training, a master's degree, a PhD, certificates. And so we want to think about the best way for you to gain access to those higher levels of education is to gain exposure to research. If you want to be a scientist, if you want to be a researcher, you're going to have to learn, and USciences is a wonderful place to learn hands-on research skills from a variety of different perspectives, different labs. Third, one big piece of advice for people choosing a college major is to think about money and to think about how much of a return on investment you're going to get. One of our newest majors, data science, reports a median salary above $100,000 a year, and it's the fastest growing, most in-demand field in the US. Like I said before, for many majors, you are going to have to go to graduate school. We have excellent salary after graduation statistics, but a lot of times those require additional training. So make sure you keep that in mind. Often, but not always, your bachelor's degree is not the end. Now to those points that I think are really important And one is that you don't have to pick just one area of study. So one option is to be like this first arrow. Declare your major right away, go straight through, graduate, and move on with either more additional training or your career. Another option is to kind of explore along the way. Think about adding some extracurriculars, some maybe research experiences outside of your major, adding a minor or a certificate. You still get to the same place at the end, but it's a little more exciting of a trip. What we want to avoid is this third arrow where you're moving around in circles. And so we do have some good mechanisms to have a double major. I'll give you some examples of those, majors and minor combinations. Um, Lots of research opportunities, and we have growing certificate opportunities that are all available to give people um, additional ways to flesh out their college career. We do not have a cosmetic science major, but chemistry, and I'm answering a question in the Q&A right now. Chemistry is a wonderful route to cosmetic sciences. There is a student who is now a graduate student in our chemistry program. Exactly. So formulations, making things, improving their qualities and their properties, that is all going to be really helpful for later careers in say, cosmetics. Majors for specific goals, say of a gynecologist or a pediatrician. Those again are specialties where there's going to be a lot of training afterward. Medical school, residency, specialist training, all of that. Pediatrics, and this is my personal opinion, I think a bachelor's degree in psychology would be a great way to approach that it because you need to know about development and language development, reasoning development, all of the issues that affect children in their health and their social contexts. Gynecology could, I would say maybe, and again, these are just my thoughts, maybe you might want to move into a biology major where you could learn more about, endocrine systems and hormones. But there are lots and lots of possible majors. And if you want to think about what is it that makes you want to pursue a specific major, that can give you clues, or what makes you want to pursue a specific career, that's going to give you clues into what major might be helpful. We also talked about moving into careers versus right away versus going to graduate school. And so there are entry-level jobs working in chemistry in different labs, different manufacturing facilities. And some people may choose to join a company at an entry level and then go to graduate school later. And sometimes companies will pay for this. So I know one of my good friends from college, he got a degree in chemistry. He went to work for one of the many pharmaceutical companies that surround this area. And then they paid for him to go back and get a master's degree later. So yeah, lots of lab work. I know there's really exciting jobs working. It's not just chemicals. And this is, as a sociologist, I never even had to take chemistry in college. But now my boss is a chemist, so I try and learn more things. And chemistry is so much more than mixing beakers of liquids and balancing equations. I learned at 3M, the company that makes tape and all of these different adhesive supplies, they employ a bunch of chemists. Anytime something needs to be made or modified or perfected, chemists are needed. And I'll stop there because I really am not a chemist and I don't want to mislead anybody, but it's really interesting, all the stuff that chemistry does. So lots of options. I'll say I am doing research right now with, she's a pre-med student, biochemistry major. So her main research project is, I couldn't even tell you. She works in a computational chemistry lab. They look at how foldamers, I think. I couldn't even tell you what she does. She also is interested in going into healthcare, did a summer internship at a hospital and collected data on patients' health literacy. So whether they need help understanding their medications and their later health outcomes like unplanned hospitalizations, emergency department visits, things like that. And so I'm working on that project with her, helping her through the statistics and the social implications of the project. And she's a biochemistry major. So that's another example of how people can go outside of their major, do research that's really going to complement. I'm not doing anything to help her with her chemistry, but our work is going to help her be a better healthcare provider in the future. I see I'm running a little low on time. Do we have any questions? Let me see what else. Oh, so let me tell you about some of these combinations I was talking about. So here's some examples. I'll get to that other question in a second. So a psychology, like I said, that could be a very good major for pre-health, anything developmental, people wanting to go into rehabilitation sciences. Psychology can be a really good major. It could also be a minor used to supplement another program of study. This really focuses on behavioral determinants of health, behavior change. So this is really big right now. We're talking about, with COVID, talking about vaccines, talking about cures. Those aren't ready yet. So what we really need to do is change people's behavior to keep people safe. So right now, our public health strategy is all about behavior change. And behavior change is really important to so many of our health outcomes. Psychology major also gives people an opportunity to do research with people. So a lot of science majors, you're working in labs, you're working with cell cultures, working with fruit flies, things like that. With psychology research, you work with people and you're understanding how the people that you're trying to serve, how they function, how they're more than just cells and organ systems and tissues. Data science as a major or as a supplemental minor takes that up a notch and looks at a very big aggregate level perspective. So data science brings in statistics and computer science. It's all about producing and interpreting information. So looking to see, figure out how many people are Google searching appropriate ways to wear masks, and if there are any patterns in that spacing, and what that tells us about how our public health campaign should move. Big data, that's kind of a buzzword in research right now, and data science is all about big data. We also have what I call our tried and true program combinations. And this is an example that is very popular with pre-med students. So one is to gain a biomedical sciences major. It's make sure you hit all the prerequisites for medical school. There are options for hands-on laboratory experience. And this is a flexible major. So some majors are have a lot of room for free electives, room for students to kind of explore, pursue those minors and certificates. Other programs are a little less flexible, but this is a flexible one that biomedical sciences pre-med majors choose to be able to explore different options, make themselves that well-rounded candidate that they know medical schools are searching for. Often has been paired with a social sciences minor. And so that's where I come in. I used to mentor a lot of these social science minor projects. This is where we might look at social aspects of health. So not just behavior, but also environment. Right now I am working with a pre-dental student who is interested in racial disparities in oral health care. And so we're using and analyzing human subjects research data that other people have already collected. Big, large national survey data sets collected by the CDC, completely de-identified, and now we can analyze them. And again, look for patterns. Was trying to explain and figure out what is driving racial disparities in oral health care. And then knowing how, if we know what's driving them, we can think about how to fix those issues. So I would just like to make one last pitch for the idea that you don't necessarily have to choose right away. Um, we have excellent guidance counselors that can guide you towards the best fit for you. If you're really not sure, you can come to a place like USciences. Know that you're going to have broad choice in programs, but that each program has depth and a lot of different opportunities within that major. We have professional programs and science programs that you could easily transition to within your first 2 years. Um, and and you would have me to guide you through that process. So one other question from the Q&A. What can a microbiology major do after getting their degree? I am not going to guess on that, but I believe it would probably be some type of lab experiences. Um, We know that there are also some people will get jobs as scribes to kind of transition the fact that you know a lot of medical terms. But I can look into what if you'd like to leave your name with us, we could direct you to the microbiology professors who can give you much better answers than I can. Another question was, how could we merge biology and neuroscience, and kind of what major would do that? Um, so the neuroscience major does have a big component of biology in it already. Neuroscience is an interdisciplinary program that draws from biology, psychology, and biophysics. And so there are specific tracks that people can follow in the neuroscience major. And there's also opportunities to, say, do a biology major with a neuroscience minor or a neuroscience major with a biology minor. But yes, there are plenty of people that can walk you through that. Any other questions, thoughts. I can, if anybody has a specific major that they're interested in hearing a little bit more about, I have some slides prepared on all of our specific majors that people might choose. Okay, how about if I do a 5-minute rundown real quick on all of the different programs. So I've mentioned psychology a couple of times. It's an excellent pre-med major. It's very flexible. There's a lot of different research opportunities. This is actually my daughter, Ivy, being being analyzed for her gestures and her expressiveness. This is in an autism spectrum disorders communication lab. Lots of career paths too. People go on to be counselors, they manage laboratories, research, a lot of different options. Told you a bit about data science already. It's very interdisciplinary, lots of job growth, pays very nicely. Um, Pharmacy related majors. A lot of people know about USciences as being one of the first pharmacy schools in the Western Hemisphere. But people can also get degrees in pharmacology and toxicology. So how the body, I believe, reacts to these medications, pharmaceutical sciences, how we make them in the first place, and pharmaceutical and healthcare business. So there's lots of different angles. I did not know about all of these different aspects of pharmacy before I came to USciences, but they're exciting. Medical humanities is another option, a very flexible curriculum. It's a good pre-med major. Looking into history and philosophy. And we also, if we think about languages, we have a Spanish for healthcare professional certificate, Latin language study is available, and also Arabic. Neuroscience, as I said, this is excellent pre-med, blends several different programs, and again, a big variety of research opportunities. So you could be working with fruit fly brains in Dr. Pierce's lab, or you can be recording my daughter's gestures in Dr. DeMartina's lab. It's all neuroscience, but there's a lot of different flavors to it. Physics is, again, if you're a math person, this physics might be for you. We have minors in math and statistics. We have an integrated BS and master's program in physics coming soon. And we have an award, multiple years in a row, award-winning Society of Physics students. So a small, tight-knit community. And physics program does a lot of cool stuff with outreach for young people, trying to get them to move into STEM. Chemical sciences, again, chemistry is more than just chemistry. There's biochemistry, pharmaceutical chemistry, and a lot of professors and graduate students doing active research. So, people get really interesting hands-on research experiences. Again, doing stuff that I couldn't even tell you what they're doing right there. Biological sciences. So you can have a very flexible major in biological sciences. There are also more specialized degrees like microbiology, like environmental science, and like medical laboratory science. And medical laboratory science is one of our majors that goes most clearly and directly to a career path straight out of school. Students in that program actually spend the end of their program doing clinical rotations and getting hands-on experience. So yes, many different flavors of biology, lots of different laboratories to work in, opportunities to work with professors and graduate students on a range of issues. Okay, I'm going to scroll back up here and look at one more question. Okay, so when you're thinking about a major and a minor, and if you maybe are going to switch things in around, how is it going to affect the jobs that you're going to be able to do? And this one's a little tricky because your major is important, but at the same time, your major isn't the end all be all to what you're going to do in your career. What I've been learning in talking with industry leaders, talking with people managing large research firms, the people who are going to hire people like you. Yes, they want people to have specific technical competencies and skills, but what they're really looking for is people who can work in a multidisciplinary world. Research is becoming increasingly complex. And so, yes, they may need a microbiologist for a specific project. But if that microbiologist is also working with computational chemists and biophysicists, they all need to be able to understand how they each contribute to the overall problem. Problems are not housed within one discipline anymore. Projects are much bigger than that, especially when we get into health sciences. And so really what's going to affect the jobs you can do the most are the technical lab skills that you build, the critical thinking and communication skills that you gain, and just the way that you approach problems. That's going to be what drives you to a career even more than what specific majors and minors you pick. Any other questions? How often do students from different majors work together? In the first couple years, everybody so the first 2 years, people are all taking general education classes, and you're mixed in with people from a lot of different majors. It's a really nice time to learn fundamental skills outside of your specific major. Once we get into the third and the fourth years, that's when you start having more close relationships with people in your major and start seeing people in the same classes over and over again. Classes become more research-based and become more focused on group problem solving. So as you continue through the program, you do work more with people in your own major, but there are opportunities. So like those psychology labs that I mentioned, they have students from all different disciplines joining them. I teach, I do sociology research. There is no sociology major. So I work with pharmacy students, I work with biomedical sciences students, biochemistry students. So there are opportunities. It just depends on where you want to focus and what year in the program you are in. Any other questions? Please do feel free to take down my email address. You can email me anytime. We're a bit busy, but I will aim to get back to you within a day or two.
Thank you, Jessica. I think that's all the questions we have this evening. But for students that want to reach out to Jessica Souter afterwards, please feel free to do so. And if you have any other admission questions, please feel free to reach out to a admission counselor like myself. I did put our email address into the chat, but just again, it's admit, ADMIT, at usciences.edu. But thank you so much for joining tonight's session. Again, please feel free to reach out if you have any additional questions after tonight. Thanks so much for joining.